Welcome to the Emporia Public Schools podcast. I am your host, Dr. Allison Anderson Harder, Superintendent. This podcast is our way to provide students, staff, parents, and community members easy access to information on a variety of topics. Once you've listened to an episode, we encourage you to use the electronic link to provide feedback or ideas about the episode to which you just listened, or to share ideas for future episodes. Today we are visiting with Mrs. Heather Cole, and Heather is a district athletic trainer and also coordinates a district wellness program. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Well, Heather, talk to us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work at Emporia Public Schools.
I originally grew up in Garden City, Kansas, born and raised there. My parents started our family there. After graduating high school, my journey took me eventually to Washburn University, where I got my athletic training degree. After I graduated from Washburn, I went back to Garden City and worked in an outpatient physical therapy clinic where I did physical therapy 2 days a week in the clinic, and then did high school outreach for 5 smaller high schools in Southwest Kansas. Decided I really liked seeing athletes on a daily basis versus just kind of a flyby athletic trainer. So I spent 3 years at Manhattan High School as their school athletic trainer. And then after 3 years, the job opened in Emporia for the athletic training position as well as the district wellness coordinator. So I began my journey at Emporia Public Schools in July of 2015 and have been here ever since.
And I think it was that summer that you and I drove together to a conference to a workshop. And so I had worked with a previous principal of your mom's, who's a teacher at Garden City.
Yep.
And so we just got to know each other back then in 2015. So that was fun.
Yes, it was.
You were coming to the district. I was at Walnut Elementary as a principal. So it was nice to get to know you, Heather.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what a district athletic trainer is with your responsibilities and what does that position entail? Because you're running everywhere when I see you at different athletic events.
Yes, it is. Some days are a lot crazier than others, but my position within the school district being the athletic trainer is I provide athletic training services to all of our practices and games. So I cover all home sporting events. Sometimes we do have multiple, so I try to cover those as best as I can. And then I'm at the high school for practices. So it's just a matter of being there if an injury does occur, hopefully preventing injuries with taping and bracing, and then education of injuries. So maybe how can we prevent those injuries through things like nutrition, hydration, exercises, and then taking care of the injury after it happens. So the rehabilitation. Obviously, there's just like any position, there's some administrative paperwork things that go along with it. But really, it's just a matter of keeping our kids healthy and keeping them hopefully on the athletic court, field, mat, pool, whatever their sport is. And so that's kind of what I do, the athletic training portion of my job.
And you also teach classes at the high school as well, so talk a little bit about that.
I do. About 4 years ago, we wanted to broaden our career and technical education, our CTE classes. And so the administration at the time had asked if I would be interested in teaching athletic training related classes as part of that CTE program. And I thought it was something I'd be interested in. So I'm teaching in our sports medicine pathway, which is part of health science. I teach this year. I've added intro to healthcare. In the past this year I'm doing care of athletes, sports medicine 1 and sports medicine 2. So it's just giving kids exposure to the medical field and showing kids that even if it's a career, there's ways that you can deal with athletes. You may not be specifically athletic in that healthcare field, but you are going to have athletes that you're going to deal with. And we talk about it's not just athletes that are running and jumping and doing things related to a ball or shooting, but we consider athletes even in our Emporia community, our industrial. So places like Patterson and Hostess that are doing repetitive motions. I mean, they're really considered athletes. And so it's just a matter of how we can help those people that we may encounter be good at what they do and then prevent wear and tear on their body as they go through their daily lives.
So you're really educating in the classroom and then in the training room everywhere, on the
Yes.
field, wherever,
Yes,
right?
all the time, hopefully.
So do you have students come back and say that they've helped their parents or their siblings as far as giving them some good advice?
I think that kids are, taking things that they learn in the classroom and not only helping people around them, but also themselves. For example, in my sports medicine 1 class, we did a big nutrition unit right before winter break, and just kids analyzing what they're eating and what they should be eating. And I think that people are making changes at home, or, high school students have a voice. Sometimes we don't want them to use it in that way, but I think that they've, been educating their parents that, hey, let's try this healthier type of food. It's going to make us feel better as a family, versus, the easy go-to things that they've had before. So I do think that, they take some stuff home, teach their parents, or at least are excited about what they're learning in the classroom.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's really cool. Talk about, if an athlete is injured, just what is the standard procedure? I know every injury is a little bit different, so what in general would be your procedure?
It really just depends on, what the injury is. Obviously, we have to make sure that it's not life-threatening or very serious right away. So it's just, we call them in the medical field, we call them primary survey. So making sure, again, it's not life-threatening, that their airways open, they're breathing, their heart's working the way it's supposed to. And obviously, if that's what's going on, then we have a whole plan that we need to put into place. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often. So a lot of times we can move into that secondary survey where it's a musculoskeletal injury. So it's either a muscle or a bone injury. And then it's just, determining sometimes fairly quickly of how serious that injury is. If we can, get them off. If it's during a game, we can get them off the court or the field, and move them to a more private location, or do a more thorough evaluation afterwards. And then, just depending on what we find, do we need to call an ambulance and have them transported for immediate further care, or is it something that we can brace within the training room, give them some ice, and then reevaluate the next day when their bodies kind of came out of that initial adrenaline rush or shock that they may be experiencing from that injury. And then it's just, determining what exactly is going on, and then the care that they need to get back on the field or the court as soon as possible, but as safely as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. Talking about concussions, talk a little bit about the concussion protocol.
So concussions are part of sports, and we see them outside of sports too. It's just people being physically active, and accidents happen. The good thing about concussions, I believe, is just like other things in the medical field, they've evolved. We know more about concussions than we did even 10 years ago. I do know that in 2011, the state of Kansas, so our House of Representatives and our Kansas State Senate came together, and they decided to pass a concussion law that helps protect our athletes if we do suspect a concussion has happened. So that kind of basically tells us what we can do. So that law states that if any athlete is removed from competition, whether it be a practice or a game, by somebody, they have to be evaluated by an MD or a DO to be able to return to activity. So very specific at who they can see. Once that medical provider has signed off that they can return to play, however long that is. Some people it's a couple days, some people a couple weeks. So just kind of depend on each athlete. Every concussion is different. They have to go through a return to play steps. It's a 4-step process where we just the first day let them walk for 10, 15 minutes, kind of depending on the sport. And then if everything goes okay in that 24-hour period of them walking, they move on to 10 to 15 minutes of jogging. Just to kind of get their head moving a little bit more, get their heart rate up. If they do okay through that 24-hour period, then they move on to a non-contact step. Each sport's different of what non-contact is considered. And then finally, they do their 4th step is a full contact. So we kind of put them in game-like situations, but also structured. So coaches kind of have some control of what could happen versus just letting them go, happen, whatever happened. And then finally, the 5th step is their return to play. So they do complete that step. And then Emporia High School also utilizes a baseline concussion test, it's called concussion vital signs, but it's a computerized concussion test. So athletes in their freshman and junior years will take a baseline test, so we know how their brain is reading information, processing information, and reacting to information before a head injury potentially happens. And then after they've been diagnosed with a concussion, they will have to be within 95% of their baseline score to be fully allowed to compete in a game situation. So they could be going through those return to play steps, but not be at that 95%. But research shows that if these athletes are within 95% of their baseline, that it's safe for us to return them to competition.
Talk a little bit, Heather, about the machine for the concussions.
So it's a computerized concussion test. They can do it on a Chromebook, a desktop. It does have to have a keyboard, so that takes out phones and iPads and those things like that. But it takes about 45 minutes total. There's two parts to the baseline concussion test that we do. The first part is that part where they're reading, processing, and reacting to the information. I tell the kids all the time, it's not an English test. You're not reading a passage and answering questions. It's very simple in a way where they have to remember words or pictures. And then, they'll give them a list of words. And then after that, they'll throw in some words that they haven't seen, and they have to initially remember those words. Or they'll have them match a color or a shape. So it's just putting their brain in different situations. It's not trying to trick them or anything that the kids think. But like I said, just make some processes and then react. So I tell the kids, I relate it to the sport they're playing. So the one I like to use is a baseball or softball player. If you have a ball coming at your head, you have to recognize that that ball's coming and that you need to get out of the way. In wrestling, it's, somebody's trying to take you down. You have to be able to protect yourself if you're going down to the mat. So just recognizing and responding to that. And then in that baseline test, it takes into account somebody who may have some learning difficulties or receive special ed services. So it's inclusive to all athletes. It doesn't, penalize the smart kids versus the kids who struggle in school. And then, it takes into account the number of concussions they've had. The test will not tell me that they can't participate because all students are required to have a physical. So it's just knowing that once you've had a concussion, you're more likely to get a second or, a third concussion. So it's just kind of giving me a heads up that they've had one before. So, if it's, do they have a concussion? Do they not have a concussion? If they've had one before, we're usually going to know that. But then at their post-injury test, when we want to see if they are within that 95%, they do the exact same. It's not the exact same words, the exact same pictures, but that test again. And then we have them rate their symptoms. So different symptoms that come with a concussion. Every athlete's going to feel different when they have a concussion. So some of them may have severe headaches. Other of them may not have the headache, but they may have nausea or vomiting, light or noise sensitivity. So it allows those athletes to rate how they feel each time they take that test. And then we just want to see if they aren't within 95%, they'll have to take it again. We usually try to do them a week apart. Taking them back-to-back days, it's not going to be enough difference to
allow their brain to heal.
Yes. So we typically do them about once a week, but we want to make sure if they are fighting those symptoms, that those symptoms are improving. And if we see through those self-reported symptom scales that they're not reporting, then it's, an indication to me that the athlete may need to get back in to their medical provider and just make sure that there wasn't something that was overlooked, or that they're not, doing things outside of when they're at school that are hindering them getting back. Because, kids want to play and we want them to play. We want them to be safe, but we are talking about brains and their life all the time is impacted when they have a concussion. So we want to make sure that, they're getting a fair chance in the classroom as well. So it's just a tool that there's different versions that are out there, but it's just a tool that kind of takes the kid wanting to get back on the court. Coaches pushing them to get back on the court, and then takes, my judgment where I have hard data that tells me that it's safe for them to return, and that we just make sure that we're not missing something in letting them get back to activity.
Oh, that's really great. So in addition to teaching classes and running between all the different sports, you also are a district wellness program director. So talk about your responsibilities with that and what do you love about that?
Well, when I came to Emporia, part of that initial job posting for me was to coordinate our employee wellness program. My first year in the district was actually the first year of the wellness program. So this is our 9th year of the employee wellness program. And it's just giving our staff ways to put themselves first and become healthier, hopefully. We've evolved our wellness program, I feel like, since I first got here, where we can let people choose what they want to do versus us saying you have to do A, B, and C. So we utilize a program called Well Steps, and they can go in and there's tons of different activities they can do to accumulate points. We kind of went that route. Our HR director at the time asked me what wellness was. And I was like, I don't know, being healthy, eating healthy, exercising, making healthy choices. And she said, well, wellness to me, and it was something that was completely different. And so when we sat down and had that conversation, I personally really struggle with eating healthy with the job and my work schedule. It's real easy to go through a drive-through and grab something not so healthy to eat. So the nutrition aspect is something that I really struggle with because I don't like going home at 9-10 o'clock at night after we've had games and cooking a healthy meal. And I am not a big leftover person. So the meal prep just doesn't work for me because I like things hot and not re-warmed up. I just don't think it tastes good. And that's my feelings on that. So it's just something that, I feel like anybody in education always puts other people first. And I really believe with this employee wellness program that if people really will jump in 2 feet with it, that they can put themselves first and that we can get the best version of our employees each and every day. And they're not fighting things that maybe we don't know about. And if they are fighting those things, whether it be physical activity or emotional wellness or financial wellness, that there are tools in our wellness program that can help them maybe get those difficulties, a little bit easier for them, or give them some tricks that they can really thrive in that area. So I think, with the 9 years that we've had the wellness program, I think just hearing those success stories where, people have dropped the weight that they couldn't get off, or there's been a couple of people that have told me that they were so close to having to take insulin because they were pre-diabetic, and through nutrition choices, they've been able to stay off of that insulin medication. I just think that those things, somebody being excited or doing something that they've never been able to do before, I think that's what I enjoy most about our wellness program.
That's awesome. Thank you. What would you say is your favorite part of the wellness program? I mean, you talked a little bit about everything, but is there one thing that you really, really enjoy? I
think, letting people choose, how they can incorporate wellness. If I say, it's kind of funny when people see me, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry I was carrying this pop when you saw me. It's everything's okay in moderation. And, I think just each individual being able to tailor the wellness program, our wellness program, to what they need. I think that's just what I enjoy most about it because, when we first started, they had some choices, but we kind of said, you need to do these things. And I don't think that it was as comprehensive as we have it now. But I think, just letting people be able to choose what they need and have those resources. I think that's what I really do enjoy most about our wellness program.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Heather. What would you say overall is your favorite part of your job?
I still think it's true. I went into athletic training because I didn't like having a set schedule. Working in that physical therapy clinic that I did my first year out of college, I also served there in internship roles in between my years in college. And the thing I didn't like about the physical therapy clinic is I knew at 8 o'clock that this was going to happen, and at 9 o'clock this was going to happen. And so it was a set schedule. I mean, every day was a little bit different, but I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. And I really think in all 3 aspects of my job, I never really know when I wake up in the morning, what I'm getting myself into. The unexpectedness I do enjoy. And the different ways that I get to interact with people. coworkers that are, teaching coworkers or coworkers with the coaching staff. Seeing some athletes that I have in the classroom and then learning them as a student, but then turning around at 3:30 and being around them as an athlete and just seeing them be successful in all those different ways. And then, in our wellness program, somebody that I maybe wouldn't have talked to because of my job and we wouldn't have crossed paths. I get to cross paths with a lot of different people in our district and, just learning their job and what they need help with. And, then when they do have those success stories, I think that I'm blessed in my role because I do get to see all different kinds of people in all different kinds of settings. And, at the end of the day, I would like to think that I'm helping a lot of different people, whether it be teaching them, which career path they want to go down in the classroom or helping them come back from an injury or giving them the tools to be able to lose the weight that they wanted to lose. I just think that, that's what I enjoy about my days at Emporia.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Heather, for being here. Great job.
Thank you.
We will end on our Emporia Public Schools mission statement. We engage, we empower, we inspire. Thank you for listening and watch for upcoming episodes.